Welcome back to the Vintage Baseball Corner. I'm Chris. Today we're going to deviate from the norm just a little bit. I'm going to call this story time. I worked in minor league baseball for 8 years, and if you've seen my previous videos, you may have caught me mentioning that, or if you saw my intro video, you would know that from that video. And with the winter meetings happening this week, and with the large contract that Juan Soto just signed with the Mets, it kind of jogged a couple memories of some of my time at the winter meetings. I thought I'd share them with you, and hopefully you will enjoy them. They're a little bit, unique, but nothing earth-shattering, but still a lot of fun. So just very quickly, every year we went to the winter meetings. The winter meetings had not only the major league teams and executives and agents and the contracts and trades and things like that going on, but they also feature all the minor league teams. There was an awards banquet. There was a trade show that brought in all the vendors that sold licensed minor league and major league product. So all the buyers, and that was part of my responsibility, as I did all the buying for, everything from team uniforms to stadium giveaways to merchandise that we sold in the souvenir store. I did all that buying. So spent a lot of time in the trade show. There was always a gala.
Remember, I've got that Gala.
What's a gala for?
It's a regatta gala.
Towards the end, and just a big, huge, lavish party. And I don't mean black tie type gala, but still a very, very nice party that was thrown for everybody and all the attendees. So we would go to that every year, have some dinners. Sometimes I would have vendors, take some of their buyers out to dinners, and enjoyed all that. But I just kind of wanted to mention 3 different things that specifically happened. I thought was kind of neat. Going back to 1998, the winter meetings were in Nashville. They were held at the Opryland Hotel, which is one of the largest hotels in the country. I believe it may even be the largest outside of Las Vegas, but several thousand rooms, just huge, huge place. All of it indoors. You can walk more than a mile from end to end indoors. So we got a lot of walking in, got a lot of time. That particular year I was in the trade show a lot, which was in their expo center, which was kind of at the very end of the property. So one afternoon I was coming out of the trade show, going to go back to my room, put some stuff up, and then get ready to go to dinner. And as I'm walking out, I'm passing by the Major League Media room. And as I'm walking out, Peter Gammons from ESPN is walking out at the same time, and he's walking at a pretty good pace. We kind of converged next to each other as we were walking. And I asked him, I said, is anything interesting happening? And he very quickly just said, yeah, Kevin Brown just signed with the Dodgers for $100 million. And I said, wow. He replied, yeah, that's a lot for a pitcher, but I got to get going because I'm headed to go on SportsCenter here in about 15 minutes. And boom, he was gone. He took a right and was gone. So that was just kind of my little brush as I kind of found that out as the world was finding out before it actually hit the media and was broadcast out. So it's just kind of neat. It basically set the winter meetings abuzz a little bit. People were talking. It ended up being a 7-year, $105 million contract. Rather than a suite like Juan Soto got, he got 12 round-trip charter flights from Los Angeles to Georgia, where he was from, for his family. So, big contract, biggest at the time. Kevin Brown right in the middle of the steroids era, even, with some injuries and stuff for 5+ years, was 58-32 with the Dodgers, with a 2.83 ERA and a 1.47 ERA plus. Just had some injury issues, but still was a very good pitcher for the Dodgers, but they did not make the playoffs, and so I don't think he kind of brought them to the heights that they were hoping. We'll move on to 1999. They were in Anaheim that year, so we flew out to Anaheim, and every year at the winter meetings, and I worked for the Birmingham Barons, the AA club for the Chicago White Sox at the time. And yes, the minor league team that Michael Jordan played for, although I missed him by a couple of years. The Barons were owned by the Elmore Sports Group, and Dave Elmore the owner always had a dinner for everybody from all of his teams that were attending the winter meetings. Well, I guess because of logistics, it was a little tough. He had, in Los Angeles, he had a dinner catered in at the restaurant, or at a place in the hotel, excuse me. And so, went down. They always had, cocktail hour, if you will, before, to where we could all just mingle and chat and get to know people from other teams. And I always made it a point to do that. I was wanting to get to know people. I didn't want to hang out just with the guys and girls that I worked with. So, talking to different guys, and there were some people from San Bernardino, which at the time they were the San Bernardino Stampede, a single A team with the Dodgers. And we're chatting with them, and then it was time to sit down and eat. Again, I always tried to sit at a different part of the table from the people that I regularly worked with. So I sat down towards the end where most of those guys were, and sat down next to a gentleman. And as I was sitting down, I kind of just reached my hand out, and said, "Hi, I'm Chris. I'm with Birmingham." And he looked at me, reached out, shook my hand, and said, "I'm Steve with San Bernardino." And the guys the other guys that were sitting down as well kind of snickered. And it took me a minute to kind of put two and two together. But the guy that I had no idea who it was former Dodgers catcher and world champion Steve Yeager. And so I felt like a complete idiot, especially once I saw that he had a World Series ring on his hand. Because I was old enough to remember him playing and remember seeing all those games. And it just didn't click. And I guess it was context. I wasn't expecting seeing him there. But in that offseason, he was doing a little bit of work with the San Bernardino front office. And he was the hitting coach for San Bernardino either that year prior or coming up the next year. I don't recall. But anyway, he was super nice. We chatted a little bit during dinner. And we all got a good laugh out of it. But I felt like just a complete idiot because I didn't know somebody that I should have known as a baseball fan and as somebody who grew up in that era watching those teams and his teams. So I apologize to Steve for not knowing, but you were very nice and kind, and we had a good time at the dinner. I met some good people, and I always tried to, again, expand my circle every year when I went to these kinds of events. So we'll move on to the last story I've got. And we moved on to 2000 in Dallas, which is where the winter meetings were held this year at the Anatole Hotel, the same hotel where this year's winter meetings were. Beautiful hotel, large place. As I mentioned kind of before, every year they had a gala. And when they had it in a major league city, they always had it at the major league ballpark. The previous year, the gala was at the ballpark in Anaheim. And again, they always did a fabulous job, just great spreads, lots of food, drinks, whatever you wanted. I remember when they had them in New Orleans, they rented out the whole New Orleans aquarium. And as we're going through the aquarium and walking and talking and socializing, there were just people carrying trays of beer, bottles of beer, just, here, you want one? And it was just like anywhere you went, there was appetizers and food and drinks. And so when we went they bussed everybody to the ballpark at Arlington at the time when they were in Dallas. So we went, the spread they put out was just amazing. And they had a big area where they had the food. It were just tables and stations of different types of food. You could go to this place and get Italian. You could go get, Mexican. You could eat, different types of food and cuisines. The dessert table was just ridiculous. I mean, it was just huge. And again, everything was all paid for. So eat, drink, be merry, as they say. Outside on the patio, an adjacent patio, they had a Cuervo station set up. I believe they had Cuervo 1800, maybe the Special. Again, I'm not a tequila connoisseur, but just walk up, grab, get some. They're pouring tequila for everybody. They had another station where a guy was hand rolling cigars, and he just had small coolers next to him where he had plugs, already pre-made plugs, and the wrappers. He'd pull the wrapper out and roll the cigar, roll them up nice and tight, and was handing out cigars. So I got mine pretty early. I encouraged a couple of buddies to jump in line because I thought they were going to run out. I thought I'd heard they might be getting low. So I checked back in with the line was pretty long after dinner, and I checked back with him. They were in line almost to the front, and as we were standing there, as we were chit chatting, a young woman comes up and asks the guy how many he has left. And they look, and there's not a whole lot left, and I don't remember the number, but she said, "Okay, I'll be right back." Well, a few minutes later, she came back and said, "Mr. Hicks needs 5." Well, Mr. Hicks being Tom Hicks, the owner of the Texas Rangers at the time. And so he said, "Okay," and he stops, and he pulls out 5 and rolls 5 up, rolls them up nice and tight, and hands them to her and says, "Mr. Hicks says thank you." And we didn't think much about it beyond that. And so, my friends got theirs, and we off on the patio and drank some beer and smoked cigars and just had an awesome time. I mean, we were there until, I don't remember, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning. It was late. And they were bussing everybody back at, different times. So, just awesome time. The Rangers did a great job with it. The food was spectacular. I can't say enough. As we get back to the Anatole Hotel, and we go in, there's an atrium or, just an open area where they're seating, and there's kind of a crowd gathered around. And so we kind of walked up to see what was going on. And it was Tommy Lasorda hanging out, basically telling stories and making people laugh or holding court as we joked. And I wish I could remember some of the specific stories, but I'll be honest with you. I mean, it was a long night. We had been having fun. We had a few cocktails and beers. So I don't remember the specifics other than we just sat there and listened to Tommy Lasorda talk for a little while before we finally went off and went back to our rooms and went to bed. But so it was kind of neat. We were leaving, and we didn't want to stay too late because we were leaving the next morning. Had to get back on a plane, and which takes us to the next morning. We're waking up, checking out of the hotel, and as we're checking out of the hotel, things start to go abuzz again, and basically it was just breaking at that time that the Rangers signed Alex Rodriguez for $252 million for 10 years, which again was the largest sports contract in history at that time. So it, didn't take us long to realize that Mr. Hicks and his people were in a suite at the stadium that night while we were all hanging out and having a good time. And they were finalizing that $252 million contract, just a tier away, if you will. And so I thought it was kind of neat. The cigars are really good. Obviously, they liked them. They enjoyed them. They had some success that night and finalized that deal. And so it was just kind of on the plane back there, everybody was talking about it. And the largest contract in history. And it's like, holy cow, how can they spend so much money? And a lot of it, I think people kind of didn't overlook at the time was, I believe, I could be wrong on this, but I believe Tom Hicks owned one of a sports network as well. And so basically not only was he paying a player for his team, his franchise, but he was also paying for programming, if you will. Obviously, signing a player like that, and Juan Soto with the Mets will be the same, as he's going to put butts in the seats and he's going to sell tickets. Well, putting ARod on the Rangers is going to increase viewership on his network as well. So it was kind of a two-pronged thing. And so the large contract made sense if you looked at it that way. But still, it was shocking at the time. I can still remember going back into the 80s when Don Mattingly was, signed for $3 million. And that was a huge, huge deal. And so, contracts obviously have gotten crazy. We know Soto just, in essence, broke the bank, if you will, Shohei Ohtani the year before. One note I will add, going back to Ohtani's contract last year and how much money he deferred, as I was reading back about the contract, ARod deferred like $35 million of his contract and deferred it back then. So the deferral of money is not a new thing. And as we all know with Bobby Bonilla Day, and Bobby Bonilla is still getting paid, long after he's done. And actually he gets paid by 2 teams every year on a July 1st, I believe, or whatever the day is, because he deferred money in his contracts and still gets paid. So anyway, I'll wrap this up. I want to thank you. Again, these are just basic brushes, with greatness, if you will, or being in the right place at the right time, but just kind of neat little addendums to the story of going to the winter meetings and hanging out with others in baseball, both major and minor leagues, and having a great time. We also got big swag bags. I think I showed a picture of that earlier. Every year that came out, and I still think I have 5 or 6 of those nice big tote bags that were filled with stuff from all the vendors and all kinds of goodies, and that was always fun too. But again, just want to thank you. I'll add some things down the road periodically. I've got some good stuff on Don Mattingly and going all the way back to his high school days. And I hope you'll join me for that. And I hope you'll join me to continue to look at baseball cards periodically as well. So again, like the video, please. If you like the content, it does help. Subscribe if you'd like to see more stuff like this. If you'd like to see more baseball cards and PSA reveals. And, share it with a friend, somebody that you think might find this interesting. It is much appreciated, and I look forward to the possibility of hanging out with you again soon.